This introverted novelist finds herself in a web of spy intelligence conspiracy because her novel is believed to seemingly predict the future. However, she soon discovers some dark secrets about her past, which subsequently reveals her true self as she strives to expose a devious spy network. Hey guys, welcome back to I Am Movies. Today we're looking into the 2024 spy action comedy film called Argylle. But before we jump into the details, be aware there are spoilers. Now let's get right into it. The movie begins as renowned novelist Ellie Conway does a reading session for her fourth book about Argylle, the title character of her eponymous series called Argylle series. In Ellie's book, she describes Argylle as an undercover spy agent whose cover gets blown as he hunts down a terrorist named Lagrange on an island in Greece. With his cover blown, Argylle finds himself in a dangerous state, but he manages to defeat them with the help of his colleague Kira, prompting Lagrange's escape. However, Kira gets shot as Argylle attempts to go after Lagrange. Although Argylle tries to save Kira, his boss, Fowler orders him to go after Lagrange instead. Subsequently, after chasing Lagrange for a while, Argylle contacts his other colleague Wyatt for help, and Lagrange gets caught on her way out of the island. Later, Wyatt and Argylle threaten to kill Lagrange if she doesn't tell them who told her that Argylle was coming. Subsequently, Lagrange reveals to them that it is their boss, Director Fowler, proving that they work for the same person. Afterward, Lagrange ingests a lethal dose of poison and she dies. That moment, Argylle and Wyatt decide to quit working for Director Fowler, and they both go off the grid, prompting a whole new ballgame. As Ellie finishes her story, she begins to receive questions from the audience. One person asks her if she's a spy herself, stating how some other popular novelists who write like her turned out to be spies themselves. However, Ellie denies being a spy and reveals to him that her work is mainly based on research and nothing more than that. Afterward, another person asks Ellie when she'll be releasing the 5th series of her book Argylle, and she promises that it'll soon be published. Later that night, Ellie, in the company of her pet cat Alfie, begins to write the epilogue of the 5th series of her book, revealing how Argylle plans to bring down Director Fowler by buying a master file known as Silver Bullet, which contains dirty secrets of top people in the division, from a hacker in Hong Kong. After Argylle pays the hacker with gold, the hacker hands him a burner phone, giving him instructions to go to London where he will get the main file from the world's greatest hacker, and the story comes to an end. The following day, Ellie contacts her mother, Ruth Conway, having sent her a copy of the 5th series the previous night. Ruth commends Ellie's writing skills, but also mentions the fact that she didn't like how she ended the story. With this, Ruth promises to visit Ellie that Friday and help her brainstorm a better ending for the story. However, Ellie relentlessly tries to rewrite the end of the story herself, but she seems not to get any better idea, so she deletes it. Shortly after, she decides to book a train to go pay her mom and dad a surprise visit, as she can no longer wait till Friday. While on the train, Ruth calls in, and she soon realizes that Ellie already booked a train to visit her. Shortly after, an old man suddenly sits opposite to Ellie and soon begins to play with Alfie. Later, the man pulls out the 4th series of Argylle and begins to read it. However, he soon realizes that Ellie is the author of the book, and they both begin to converse as the man introduces himself to her as a spy. Subsequently, the old man reveals to Ellie that most of the people on the train are there to spy on her, but Ellie finds it hard to believe. Shortly after, one of the spies approaches them, pretending to want an autograph from Ellie, but he suddenly pulls out a needle-like pen to attack them. With this, Ellie somehow have a dreamy look on the old man and look at him as Argylle. In a fast-paced action, the old man manages to take the spy down, and the other spies soon join in the fight. After beating up most of the spies, the old man takes Ellie with him, and they both blow their way out the back, escaping from the spies. Later, Ellie finds herself in the old man's apartment, and he formally introduces himself to her as Aiden Wilde. Shortly after, Aiden plays a video feed from Ellie's room, showing her how spy agents are rummaging through her stuff. Aiden reveals to Ellie that the spies work for the real-life version of a government intelligence division, led by a man called Director Ritter, just like she depicts in her stories. Meanwhile, Director Ritter, the real-life version of Director Fowler, kills his deputy who had failed to meet his expectations as he sought to get the master file by any means necessary, just to make sure it doesn't get into Aiden's hands. However, the only way anyone can get the location of the master file is if Ellie finishes her 5th series, since it will be featured in her story. Meanwhile, Ellie still finds it hard to believe that she's in any way involved with what's going on, but Aiden tells her that her book's 5th series is a future prediction of events that will soon unfold. Ellie stares in shock as she realizes that Aiden had read her 5th book, but Aiden further reveals to her that the division has been monitoring every word she ever typed, stating that her latest entry was what sparked their interest because it is something they had no idea about. Aiden promises to help Ellie get her life back, but also reveals that he'll need her to help him. Soon they hit the road, and Aiden reveals to Ellie that he is the real-life version of Argylle, and that he had contacted a hacker named Benkunin to help him get the master file. The file contained implicating information like kidnapping, radioactive poisoning, election fraud, and info on chemical weapon sales done by top people in the division, including Director Ritter. Aiden further reveals that Bakunin never showed up with the master file or silver bullet after getting paid, prompting Aiden and the division to start searching for him ever since. With this, Aiden asks Ellie to help him find Bakunin, or at least tell him where the silver bullet might be. Ellie reveals to Aiden that it might take months of research to write the next chapter, stating that she hasn't even been to London in her life. On hearing this, Aiden flies Ellie to London, even though she is afraid to fly at first. In London, Aiden takes Ellie to Albert Memorial in Hyde Park, where he'd waited for Bakunin to give him the silver bullet. Subsequently, Aiden persuades Ellie to provide the answer as to why Bakunin never showed up. Ellie begins to write as soon as they find a spot, but at the same time, the division spots Ellie through the live stream of one of her fans. With this, they immediately begin to spy on her conversation with Aiden. While typing, Ellie tells the story of how Argyle and Wyatt try to figure out how the burner phone would lead them to the silver bullet. However, Aiden reveals to Ellie that he already disposed of the burner phone, and after brainstorming for a while, Ellie realizes that if the phone has been encrypted from end to end, it must have had a matching DSEC satellite dish. With this, Aiden takes control of Ellie's laptop as he tries to figure out which satellite Bakunin wants them to find. At the same time, Director Ritter encourages his men to figure it out before Aiden does. Shortly after, the division and Aiden both figure out the location as 25 Coburg Street. Moments later, Aiden and Ellie arrive at the location, but they only find an empty room. Although Aiden feels disappointed, Ellie convinces him that there is a clue in the room, and they soon find a box hidden underneath the room floor. Inside the box, they find a boat key and a hacker's logbook containing encoded IP addresses and VPNs. Soon Aiden and Ellie spot Director Ritter's men coming into the building, and they both hide underneath the floor. Moments later, Alfie meows and their cover gets blown, prompting Aiden to break out of the hiding spot and swing into action, subsequently putting down all the agents. Soon he spots another set coming after them, but he still manages to put all of them down again. Afterward, he swiftly takes Ellie and Alfie with him, and they quickly escape through the roof, jumping and subsequently escaping in a boat that Bakunin had prepared for them. After going through the book, Aiden reveals to Ellie that Bakunin used a symmetric key algorithm to encrypt the book, which Ellie had mentioned in the first series of her book as the Lie Massey scheme. Shortly after, Ellie asks Aiden to take his bath, hinting that he stinks. However, Ellie later overhears Aiden speaking to his boss on the phone, telling him that Ellie is driving him nuts and how much he wants to kill her. On hearing this, Ellie takes the logbook and escapes from the building. She immediately contacts Ruth from a payphone to narrate the whole ordeal. Hours later, they both meet at a specified hotel, and as she tries to explain everything in detail, her father, Barry, steps in, and he happens to be Director Ritter himself. With the whole family seated, Ellie tries to explain the kind of trouble she's got herself into, but Ruth finds it ridiculous and she laughs it off as a joke. So Ellie gives the logbook to Barry as proof of what she's saying. Barry pretends to be checking it out, but soon begins to scan the pages and sends it to the division. Shortly after, Aiden breaks into the room and holds Barry hostage, while Ellie tries to protect Ruth from harm. However, Ellie refuses to believe Aiden as he tries to explain to Ellie that he's the good guy. Shortly after, Barry tells Aiden that the division will not stop hunting him if he should kill him, and this is when Ellie realizes that she's been lied to. With this, Ruth, whose real name is Vogler, pulls her gun on Ellie, but Aiden manages to shoot her down and subsequently save Ellie after knocking Director Ritter out. Shortly after, they both run out of the building and Ellie soon realizes that she'd forgotten Alfie. However, Aiden asks Ellie to choose between dying with Alfie or coming with him to hear the truth, and she chooses to go with him. The next day, they both arrive on a grape farm in France where they meet a man bearing the same name as her cat, Alfie. Surprisingly, Ellie recognizes the man as Alfred Solomon, the former deputy director of the CIA. Shortly after, Alfred takes Ellie into his hidden workroom and soon reveals to her that she's the real Agent Argyle, seemingly having been derived from R. Kyle, which means Rachel Kyle. He further reveals to her that the books she's been writing are memories of who she used to be, and not predictions as she was made to believe. Overwhelmed with shock, Ellie angrily confronts Aiden and he tells her that it's all true. However, Ellie requests the car keys as she attempts to leave, but instead of handing the keys to her, Aiden attacks her, and she responds swiftly, pinning him down in seconds. With this, Ellie requests to know everything that happened to her. Meanwhile, at this time, Ritter and Alfred simultaneously try to decode the Lie Massey scheme. Back at the farm, Aiden reveals to Ellie that she was actually the one who went to meet Bakunin in front of the Albert Memorial in Hyde Park, and no one knows what happened that day until she was found in a coma in a local ER, from where she later got transferred to a hospital in the United States. By the time Ellie gained consciousness, she already lost her memory, and lost touch with who she was. So director Ritter and Ruth decided to create a new visual of the life they wanted her to believe she lived. After watching all these unfold, Aiden decided to step in and seek support from Alfred, the man who trained them to be spies. Alfred opened an investigation on the case, but director Ritter dismissed him as a conspiracy theorist and has been hunting Alfred ever since. With Alfred on the run, director Ritter and Ruth began to manipulate Ellie to write stories about herself, after giving her a journal filled with details of important events in her life. It all worked fine until Ellie got to the last part of the book that the division needed before deciding to kill her. Aiden reveals that he's been watching Ellie for the past 5 years and also shows her images from when she used to be the finest CIA field agent. Aiden also adds that he is the real-life Wyatt she talked about in her books and that there was also a real-life Kira, who got shot in the heart during an operation in Greece. Finally, Alfred decodes the Lie Massey scheme, and he finds a message that says Bankunan had left the silver bullet at the hands of Miss Saba al-Badr, also known as the Keeper of Secrets. In the message, Bakunin specifically stated that the file can only be retrieved by one person, and that's Rachel Kyle. Rachel believes she can't do it, citing the fact that she's no longer who she used to be, but Aiden reassures her that she can do it. Afterward, Aiden takes Rachel with him, and they both visit the Keeper of Secrets. While waiting for the Keeper, Aiden makes Rachel dance with him, and he later reveals to her that the both of them used to be lovers before she lost her memory. Shortly after, Rachel gets summoned to meet the Keeper alone. The Keeper of Secrets asks Rachel Kyle who she really is, Elk Conway or Rachel Kyle, but she soon begins to stutter. However, she soon gains confidence after seeing Agent Argyle in a reflection telling her to be herself. With this, she threatens the Keeper to give her the box, or watch her forcefully take it. The Keeper hands Rachel the silver bullet, and provides her with a computer to confirm its content. Shortly after, Rachel sees her name in the file alongside the crime she's committed. Afterward, Rachel quickly goes to meet with Aiden as she tries to confide in him. But to their surprise, Vogler arrives with some men, revealing that her bulletproofed vest had saved her from the gunshot in London. However, since guns are not allowed and there is a strict rule of no violence at the Keeper's place, Vogler invites them to have tea with her. During this time, Vogler joggles Rachel's memory, reminding her of how she killed Bankunan after he'd revealed to her that the silver bullet was waiting for her at the Keeper's place. However, as Bankunan's pulse dropped, it triggered an explosion that blew Rachel out of the window and then into the sea. With this, Rachel reveals that she killed Bankunan, and they all fall asleep as their tea has been laced with sedatives by Carlos. Rachel wakes up at Director Ritter's house, and he soon begins to convince Rachel to give him Alfred's location, stating that he's trying to expose them. Director Ritter reveals to Rachel that Aiden has refused to give up Alfred's location, but Rachel volunteers to get it out of him by herself. With this, Director Ritter strikes a deal with Rachel, requesting Alfred's location in exchange for her cat Alfie. However, Rachel reveals to him that she doesn't like cats at all, stating that she prefers dogs instead. Afterward, Rachel tries to convince Aiden to give up Alfred's location, but he refuses and she shoots him in the chest. Subsequently, Rachel agrees to help the division find Alfred, and they take her to their mainframe computer, where she begins to search for the farm using geolocation. Meanwhile, at this time, Aiden survives the gunshot, and as the agents uncuff his hands, he knocks them out cold. However, after successfully locating the farm, Rachel reveals to Director Ritter that she just sent the master file to Alfred, but she soon realizes that the file did not go through. With this, she begins to fight them, and eventually knocks them out. Shortly after, she picks up Alfie and attempts to run away, but Director Ritter soon raises an alarm, forcing Rachel to hide in the armory. Later, Aiden meets Rachel in the armory and she explains to him that she'd intentionally shot him through his cardiovascular corridor to keep him alive. Soon, Rachel and Aiden switch to combat mode as they walk out of the armory heavily armed, killing any soldier on their way. Subsequently, Rachel and Aiden escape through a vent, and they soon find themselves in the control room of an oil rig. As bullets pierce pipes, cruise oil begins to leak all over the floor, prompting Carlos to ask the soldiers to cease fire. Using the oil to her advantage, Rachel slides through the oil with an improvised knife shoe, putting down all the soldiers in a few seconds. Rachel finally faces off with Carlos, but she wastes no time to send a knife through him. Shortly after, Rachel and Aiden set out to the server room, and they soon begin to send out the master file to Alfred. However, Director Ritter interrupts them, but Alfie attacks him and scratches his eyes, which is needed to unlock the computer. Aiden shoots Director Ritter down, and Rachel suggests that they find an alternative way to send the file. However, as soon as they step outside, they realize that they are currently on an oil vessel in the middle of the ocean. Rachel bypasses the security using the satellite, and manages to successfully send the file to Alfred. Subsequently, Vogler uses a mental trigger sound to force Rachel to furiously attack Aiden, and also pause the file from sending. Aiden, however, continues to hold back because he doesn't want to hurt Rachel. As Rachel attempts to finish Aiden off, a lady knocks Vogler out with a wrench hammer and Rachel immediately regains herself. Moments later, they realize that Kira had survived the gunshot in Greece, and she reveals to them that she had sneaked into the division's network for a long time, waiting for the right time to strike. With this, Rachel completes sending the file over to Alfred, and they escape in a boat before blowing up the ship. Resuming her novelist persona, Rachel publishes her final Argyle novel and holds a reading session with her fans where she finally meets a real-life Argyle. If you'd like to see us recap any other movies or topics you have in mind, just drop a comment and let us know. And don't forget to hit the like button, share this recap, and subscribe to stay updated for the next one. Until next time.